What's up, everybody? I'm John Middlekauff. You know what I need you to do. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got content for days reacting to every NFL game all the time, every single day. Subscribe, like the videos. Let's go. What is going on, everybody? How are we doing? We just witnessed the Washington Commanders, Jayden Daniels, my bald brother, Dan Quinn, head to the playoffs. They are heading to the playoffs. And while it's not official, I think we can unofficially say that Atlanta will not be attending the playoffs. And Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they handle business next week. I'm pretty sure they're playing the Panthers or the Saints. One of those two teams are both playing those, the Saints and the Panthers, who are obviously both horrific. Baker Mayfield and the Bucs will win that division for 3 with Brady, 2 with Baker, 5 straight times. Or at least not necessarily, they haven't won the division 5 straight times, but they will be going to 5 straight playoffs. And Atlanta, pretty big disaster. So we'll dive into the game from Jayden to Kingsbury to Michael Penix. It was awesome. I really enjoyed it. And I thought what we'd also do is I got a couple of mailbag questions that I wanted to hit on in regards to Sam Darnold, the draft, and Tom Brady today. So just things that actually correlated with what we were going to talk about. So I kind of wanted to incorporate those in the show. But it's been a long day of football. It's been a long 2 days. We did something yesterday. If you missed it, we did a recap of the 3 games. Woke up this morning not feeling great. Luckily, I could kind of nap through the morning games. It was horrific. I mean, I love football, but that morning slate, unless you were, a fan of the Giants or some of these shitty teams that you want to win and they lost, or excuse me, you wanted them to lose and they won, rough. But luckily, the Vikings-Packer game was pretty good, and obviously the night game was fantastic. So we will dive into some football. Also have you covered this week, college football playoff games. There's a game on Tuesday, 3 games on Wednesday. We'll have a bunch of content out throughout the week. So buckle up. Last Monday Night Football game of the year. Well, I guess there's a playoff Monday Night Football game now, so I was wrong there. Thursday Night Football over. I was going to say thank God, but hey, I kind of like watching football on Thursday nights. But before we dive into everything, we got a lot going on. I mean, there's just a lot going on. Rams also made the playoffs. Got to tell you about my friends, my partners, and the official ticketing app of this podcast. If you want to go to a game, if you want to go to a concert, if you want to go to an event and have some fun, my friends at Game Time have you covered. Best ticketing app I've ever used. Easiest ticketing app to use by a mile. I cannot recommend them enough. Just download the app. It's really easy to do. And take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the app today. Create an account. Use the code JOHN, JOHN, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Redeem the code JOHN for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. I just got to say, overall, that was an enjoyable experience on Sunday Night Football. The 2 coaches are just really likable. I mean, Dan Quinn, I don't know the guy personally, feels like one of the more just genuine, nice guys in the NFL. I don't know if I've ever heard a bad word about that guy. Raheem Morris is another one of those guys that everyone seems to like. And they just feel very like positive, uplifting human beings. Like 2 guys that would be fun to play for. Those 2 quarterbacks. Now, I liked Penix more, I think, the last couple years in college. Now, granted, I watched way more of Penix than I did of Jayden Daniels. And I let Jayden Daniels' experience at Arizona State kind of jade my belief in him, even with his dominance at LSU. But he clearly is a pretty special player. And those 2 guys are just really, really easy to root for. Penix, this left-handed gunslinger, pocket quarterback, and Jayden Daniels, this dual threat, huge arm, runs around, kind of like nonchalantly. It's like, Jayden, you should probably run a little faster, but maybe he is running full speed, but it feels like he's going half speed. They're just easy guys to watch. And we'll dive into Penix. Obviously, he missed some throws. And I really just enjoyed that experience. What was on the line for the Falcons, what they had done, investing in Cousins, drafting this guy, and it looks like they're going to miss the playoffs. And then Washington, it's like this franchise has been such a joke. New owner, new quarterback, new GM, boom, playoffs year 1, 11 wins. So it just that was fun. And I think early on in that game, it was like Washington's in major trouble. They could not stop Bijan Robinson, who it felt like was about to have a Saquon Barkley like day. Looked like he was going to go for 170 yards. I mean, he was unstoppable in the first half. And it felt like he was gaining steam. Jayden Daniels in the offense was really off. Kingsbury, who, everyone just loves. And listen, he's got a lot of friends in the media. Seems like a good guy. But offensively, philosophically, I don't view football quite like him. And he went through a stretch there. It's like, Cliff, this isn't the air raid. We're not in the Big 12. Your quarterback is getting fucking killed. Just run the ball. Take a deep breath. Just let it settle. And at one point in time, it's like 17-7. You're like, Cliff, you can't just throw the ball constantly with the way your quarterback's getting hit. And it's not even like this is a great pass rush, but Jayden was off and it was unraveling. And then whatever happened at halftime, they settled down. And one, it felt like they ran the ball a lot more. It felt like they just called a lot more easier completions. Not everything has to be a down the field bomb. And I don't know if Jayden just settled down on the speed of the game, but he was much more calm, cool, collected, comfortable, and made a ton of plays down the stretch. And that final drive in overtime was really fantastic. I mean, with his legs, with his arms, obviously the game-winning touchdown pass to Ertz. Ertz was fantastic tonight. I mean, what a great signing. This is what happens, sometimes when you restart a franchise, and then that's what Adam Peters and Dan Quinn did. And they were going to rely heavily on Jayden Daniels this season, right? They were going to rely heavily on him. But there was, I think, right before Jayden threw that game-winning touchdown pass, look who was talking to him and kind of hyping him up. Not a coach, Marcus Mariota. Look at how big Zach Ertz was tonight. Caught multiple touchdowns, had another big play in the middle of the field. Like you have to strike a balance when you reset a franchise of getting grown-ups in the building. Getting guys, obviously you need good players. You can't win 11 games without good players. And they were lucky they inherited. I mean, Terry McLaurin's having one of the best years as a wide receiver, and they inherited him, right? Defensively, they didn't have much. They had traded a couple D linemen and had to kind of start over there. But offensively, when you get Mariota, a veteran, just high character who's seen it all, to be right there for your quarterback, and you get Zach Ertz, who actually gets to be on the field for him. You had Brian Robinson on the team as well, but I thought Jayden tonight and Cliff really settled down because at one point in time, I thought he was going to throw away the game. I'm like, this is the guy that used to drive me bananas. Stop spreading it out when it isn't working. You're only down 10 points, 7 points. Take a deep breath, run the ball a couple snaps. Your quarterback is all out of sync. And then they did, and everyone settled down. And all of a sudden, they come on a 17-0 run, and they have a 24-7 lead. And Michael Penix is, I think when you're comparing these two quarterbacks, you're like, what? And I was telling Maria during dinner, like during the third quarter, we were eating, and I was kind of describing who these two guys were, where they came from, how they both got drafted. She was a Cousins guy because of on the Netflix show, and I'm like, yeah, he got, Cole's Cash got sent to the bench for this guy, but this is only his second game. And in football, and it was well reported last week, he doesn't get any reps. So once Cousins came back from the injury in training camp, he gets all the reps. Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson, those are all Cousins. And Michael Penix got none till the start of last week because I'm a big Michael Penix guy. I liked the draft pick. I don't like the way it all came together with like signing Cousins and him. But just in a vacuum, I like Michael Penix, the player. But there were a ton of throws tonight. He hit some big ones. Obviously, the game-tying throw that essentially sent the game to overtime to Kyle Pitts, which was an absolute dime on fourth down. But like there were several throws that he would have made in his sleep at Washington that he missed tonight. And it wasn't because his arm wasn't good enough or he had shitty footwork. He just missed the throw. And it's like, well, of course, he hasn't practiced with these guys at all till 14 days ago. So the timing with these guys on some of these routes, the footwork to setting up your throw to hitching and letting it rip is just going to be off. Why? He's practicing with a bunch of practice squad receivers. And like, is Atlanta in this spot if he started the whole year? I don't know. Who knows how it would have gone. But to throw him in last week when coming up was this game on the road in Washington, basically with your season on the line, is just bad management, especially when Cousins had been playing as shitty as he was playing. Like he had been terrible for a while. They should have got him in the game sooner. They should have started him earlier in the year. Like, listen, once you draft him, like you got both guys. It was pretty evident like a month ago. Cousins looked shot. Like this thing was over. But listen, anytime you make an investment, anytime that you go all in on something, you don't want to look like an idiot. The front office, the coach, and they let it ride. And I think they let it ride a couple weeks too long because this might not have been a close game if Penix just had more reps going with his guys. Because tonight I thought it was pretty evident that the timing was off. Now, that being said, he's really talented. And he made, I mean, that couple of those throws on the final drive in regulation where he hit London, where he hit Pitts. I mean, that felt a little bit like Alex Smith to Vernon Davis 15 years ago. Uh, wasn't quite the same, but Steve Young to Terrell Owens. You got to put it right. Like you have no room. He's running right down the middle of the field. You got multiple defenders, one ahead of him, one behind him. You got another one coming across, and the throw has to be perfect. Like there is probably, I don't know, a couple foot radius where you can put the ball, and he did. And then obviously Washington gets the ball and never looks back in overtime, scores a touchdown and cements the game. But I think if you're an Atlanta Falcons fan, you got to be asking yourself, like, would this have been different if he would have got in the game earlier in the season? Because one thing that Washington really benefited from, and you felt it tonight, because let's face it, Jayden looked terrible halfway through that game. Like, it's just off. And I started thinking, like, it's going to suck. He's having this fantastic rookie season, but this is going to be one of their most watched games of the year. And it felt like just he and the offense was just unraveling a little bit. It's like, God, this is going to leave such a bad taste in everyone's mouth. People are going to use this. And as the game went on, he just settled down. Obviously, Cliff did a better job of calling plays, but his experience to lean back over game after game after game after game. I mean, this guy's played every snap for him. I guess he got injured and Mariota came in the one game, but you know what I mean? Like, this guy has a lot of game reps now in the National Football League. Both these two guys played a ton in college. Jayden Daniels, 5-year starter. Penix, some injuries are factored in there, but was a 6-year starter in college. But the NFL is a different animal. It's a different speed. All the defensive players are dramatically better. And I think you just saw like some rust over lack of reps with Michael Penix as the game went on. He was just very hit or miss throw to throw. Where Jayden Daniels, as the game went on, felt like he got stronger. Why? He does this every week. Sorry, battling a little cold here. Everyone in my life has been sick. Somehow I avoided it till Sunday morning when it kicked in. But as a massive win by Washington, it really is. And even their defense, like they do not have some stacked defense with a bunch of Pro Bowlers. And you watched as that game went on, and they asked Dan Quinn about it, like, how are you going to stop Bijan Robinson? He's like, we got to get our pads down. We got to tackle him. And it just felt like they corralled him much better in the second half. Because if they hadn't and didn't tackle him as well and just, I don't know, found a way to slow him down, they were going to be in major trouble. Because you're watching the first half going, yeah, I get why they drafted him in the top 10. I guess I get why my scouting buddies that did Texas love this guy. Because he is a physical monster. Turns out he's an actor too. But that was a fun football game. And if you're Atlanta, you got to be going, shit, we're up 17-7 on the road. What the hell happened? How did we unravel like that? And some big plays were given up by their defense. And obviously, Jayden just, I mean, one major difference, obviously, when you just watch the two guys, the reason one guy was the number 2 overall pick and the other guy was a controversial, even if Atlanta, any team that was going to take him in the top 10, like Michael Penix would have been a polarizing pick. He's a pocket quarterback. He is, I mean, he's essentially, if he's going to be a bigger Tua, but unlike Tua, he's got way bigger hands. I like him more than Tua coming out. But like that's going to be the style of his game, just in terms of He's going to try to get the ball out of his hand quickly. He throws a better deep ball. But both those guys, like, he's just a bigger, stronger version of Tua. Jayden Daniels is like some version of like Lamar Jackson, right? Throws a fantastic strike. Like there were so many balls early on in that game where he's just hitting guys like 1-2 ball right out of his hand. You're like, this guy's throwing 90-mile-an-hour seeds. And then obviously with the running game, his ability to make guys miss in space, defensive linemen never have him despite the angles, and he can keep plays alive to gain first downs pretty easily. Like he makes a guy miss in space, no problem. And that was a huge point of difference tonight. How many times tonight, when they needed a big play, they got him on the edge, especially running to his right? He's really fucking dangerous. Obviously, he has the speed if he has, and you don't have an angle to get to the first down just around everybody, but he also has the ability to make a guy miss. And he's not doing some crazy like Barry Sanders, shady, you know, hips moving in space, but he's kind of got like a subtle under move where he just goes right around you and all of a sudden you're just hugging air. And well, I don't know what his final numbers were on the ground, but he had 16 carries. God, he had 16 carries for 127 yards. 16 carries for 127 yards. So they ran for 216 yards, and he threw for 227 and had 127. I mean, he accounted for essentially 300 yards, like 350 yards. I mean, their total offense was offense. Let me see if I can get this math. Yeah, I mean, I'm bad at math right now. They ran for 200. I can't do this right now. But fantastic effort by Jayden Daniels. Holy shit. I didn't realize he had that many yards on the ground. I really didn't. One thing with the Falcons tonight, up until that final drive, where I thought Penix showed a lot, is they were terrible. Going into that final drive, they were 1-7 on third down. He hit a big first down to Drake London. And then on that fourth down play, obviously he hit the play to Kyle Pitts. And that was after, remember, on first and goal. Some of these coordinators, man, they get just so cute trying to run a wildcat. It's like your quarterback had just led you down the field. Win or lose with the quarterback. And if you do want the ball in Bijan's hand, either run a wheel route for him or hand him the ball. But to run wildcat with him, and I know it's easy to play Monday morning quarterback when the ball flies over his head, but it's insane after that fucked up fumble that they ended up scoring a touchdown. I mean, what a testament to Michael Penix. And this is why I like Michael Penix so much, because it's very evident with Jayden. Like, these guys are mentally tough. It's hard to rattle these cats. They have played a ton. This is not 1 year starter. This is not 2 years for Caleb at USC, right? And it's like, God, it's just unraveling. Like, these guys have seen some shit. 5 and 6 year starters in college. Like, that's the amount of games those two guys ran out the tunnel for in college is pretty nuts. And, Penix had been better for longer. Obviously, Jayden, whatever clicked last year, he's never looked back. But, Jayden's a pretty special player. I think Michael Penix is going to be good. And I think this falls on the Atlanta Falcons for waiting this long. Like, they're going to miss the playoffs because, like, their quarterback situation was clunky. It really was. They give $100 million to a guy with a torn Achilles, and then he's playing so shitty, and then they wait a game, and he keeps playing shitty, and then they wait a couple more games, and they finally pull the trigger. And it's just kind of too late. And now you're going to look up, and Tampa's going to be probably playing like the Lions in the first round. And a lot of pressure then would be on the Lions. And Baker Mayfield's actually playing pretty well. But, like, Tampa Bay's just much better run than the Atlanta Falcons. Is that even, like, can we even argue that? Like, Tampa's a well-run franchise. Atlanta has some good players, but, like, do they know what they're doing? Do they just kind of throw some stuff at the wall and hope it sticks? Because that's the thing. Like, I've known Adam Peters for a while. Like, Washington has a plan. Like, they have an idea what they want to do. Obviously, they're ahead of schedule this year, but, like, they have a clear idea of what they're going to do over the next couple years. In Atlanta, like, I don't know. Like, they got some good players, like, trade for Judon. It just feels like they're kind of flying by the seat of their pants. And at the end of the day, it kind of bit them. But congrats to Washington. It's the most wonderful time of year. for getting in on all the hoops, football, and hockey action at the DraftKings Sportsbook. It's the season of giving, and we're being gifted college football and basketball, pro football and basketball, and pro hockey too, almost 24/7. So many games every day, so many opportunities to place your first bet. Try betting on something simple, like picking a team to win. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook app and place your bet. And here's a gift for all new customers. Bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code JOHN. That's code JOHN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. When you bet, just $5. Happy holidays from DraftKings. The crown is yours. I talk with Colin a lot about this, but I got a question from the mailbag that I think is pretty interesting. So it can kind of lead us to where we want to talk about Sam Darnold, who had one of the coolest moments after the game in the locker room. And I think it serves as a great example that, and you don't have to be NFL quarterback talent. I just think any human being can relate to this. You are going to go through some shitty times in life. It is inevitable. It is not avoidable. Professionally, you are going to have a rough stretch. Some is worse than others, but all of us can relate to tough times professionally. And Sam Darnold's was very public, and everyone made fun of him. And it was just embarrassing. But you know what? He just kept his head up and he kept swinging. And it never felt like he battled it, like, fuck everybody. He just kept his head up, kept swinging, kept his head up, kept swinging. Goes last year to San Francisco, changed the course of his career, goes to Kevin O'Connell, and is now just having a career year. And his team freaking loves him. If you're a Minnesota Vikings fan, you watched that game today. I mean, he was brilliant. Beside a couple passes, he looked like Joe Montana meets Josh Allen. I mean, he was incredible. And I got this question that says, where does Darnold rank? Because we know in the AFC, 5 best quarterbacks in the NFL are in the AFC. Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert. Those are the 5 best quarterbacks in the National Football League, and they play in the AFC. But what about the NFC? Because the only 2 guys I would clearly take over him right now are Goff and Hurts. Then it's the class of the Dak, Love, Baker, Stafford. I'll throw Purdy in there. Try to give him a little love. I think Sam Darnold, again, because we can only base his success on this season. Sam Darnold's success is this season. You have nothing else to go back on because it was unsuccessful before this year. So just based on this season, the only guy in the NFC that has an argument, and I was looking at their numbers actually during the game, is Jared Goff, who statistically was more accurate. And I don't know exactly the touchdowns, they wouldn't be equal because Goff plays on Monday Night Football. But Goff's actually thrown for more yards, but Sam Darnold is, it does feel like, it means just a fact, is more athletic. Obviously, Darnold has a stronger arm, but both guys have been unreal. Lock NFC Pro Bowl guys. Sam Darnold this year, over the course of his career, obviously it's not even debatable, but just talking 2024, has been objectively better than Jalen Hurts. And honestly, the gap's pretty wide. And I'm not counting, obviously he didn't play today because of the concussion, but before a couple weeks ago, Jalen was not having a very good season passing. He was not throwing many touchdowns. And it's not like he doesn't have guys to throw touchdowns to. Ironically, today, they got backups in Kenny Pickett and Tanner McKee that are just throwing touchdown after touchdown after touchdown after touchdown. It was crazy. But I would say based on this season, the only guy you would take over Sam Darnold would be Jared Goff. And here's what I know. Jared Goff would not be as good on Minnesota because Jared can't move. And right now, Minnesota's offensive line is a little hit or miss. So part of Sam Darnold's success is moving around. They would actually be better off. They might even take Jalen Hurts over Jared Goff because they need some mobility because they couldn't have a guy that can't really move. Jared, obviously, not a mobile guy, but has a great offensive line. So that's a good question. I think what Sam has done, remarkable. And very cool year. I mean, at this point in time, if you're arguing, get rid of him and go with J.J. McCarthy, we probably wouldn't be friends. I think there's only one outcome. Now, if we want to argue whether you franchise tag him or sign him to a long-term contract, okay, we can have that argument. But Sam Darnold has to be their quarterback next year. I mean, it has to happen. I mean, Jordan Love got $160 million, $75 million signing bonus, three $25 million increments over the course. I think he just actually recently got one around Christmas, his last. Pretty good signing bonus, three $25 million little direct deposits. They are taxed, so it's probably, I don't know exactly the Green Bay tax rates, but 15, 14. I mean, it's a large chunk of money. So Jordan Love's living well. But he got that based on 8 games and a Cowboy game. Because he threw 2 picks in the Niner game and one that ended the game for an L. So Sam Darnold, at this point in time, has really start to finish, beside a couple games mixed into the season, been an elite player. I mean, been a dominant player. He's going to be the Minnesota Vikings quarterback next season. A lot of talk about the draft. A couple quick things I wrote down about the draft. The Patriots are the only team locked into a top 5 pick. So of all the shitty teams, they are the only team that is guaranteed to draft in the top 5. 4 teams as of right now. This is my guy Field Yates actually tweeted this out. I just wrote down because I love these nuggets. 4 teams currently heading into week 18 have a shot for the number 1 overall pick. Obviously the Patriots, the Cleveland Browns, the Tennessee Titans, and the New York Football Giants. So I got this question. I think it's intriguing because I think this was a topic that I definitely wanted to hit on today. Me and Colin didn't talk about it. The Giants had one thing going for them: the chance at the number 1 overall pick. And those idiots, he didn't even use a little meaner word, go and win the game. I'm no longer a fan. A pointless win will cost them a real quarterback. They simply get everything wrong. Here's the shitty part about being a fan. You've endured this entire season, if you're a Giants fan, or up until a couple weeks ago, a Raider fan, and really the only hope you had as the season went on was maybe to see Neighbors or Brock Bowers make some sweet plays, but also keep losing. No one is rooting for you to lose until all of a sudden your record is so pitiful, getting close to Christmas, there is no point to win. So we can have the number 1 overall pick. Even if the number 1 overall pick doesn't guarantee us anything. Here's the problem, and this is the power of the NFL. No coach, no player gives a shit. None of them don't try. Just know this: whenever the Chicago Bears, they have lost 10 straight NFL football games. That's pretty hard to do. I don't know what I guess the record's 0-16. But I would imagine there's a short list of teams over the last decade that have lost more than 10 straight games, or even up to 10. That's very, very difficult to do. Just know this: they have literally tried very hard, while it might not show on television, to win all 10 of those games. They have wanted to, prepared, worked, game planned to try to win. And that's the power of football. In basketball, people tank all the time. The league's been tanking well before Daryl Morey or the process and Sam Hinkie, well before. It became in vogue and much more famous, but we've known it's been going on for a long time. Think about the most controversial thing to happen over the last 3 or 4 years when it comes to that type of stuff in football. It was Stephen Ross told Brian Flores, I want you to lose games. I will pay you $100,000 every game you lose. Brian Flores, in a draft that had Joe fucking Burrow, won 3 of his last 4 games. Maybe 3 of his last 5 games. I think he won 3 games in the month of December. And they went from a shoo-in to get Joe Burrow, who clearly would have changed their entire franchise. Hell, they're not even that terrible right now. They've made the playoffs the last couple of years. They'll probably end up going 9-8. And they got Tua, who's middle of the road at best. I know he didn't play today, but could have had Joe Burrow. And Brian Flores and the rest of his coaches and the rest of his players said, not so fast, my friend. And they won games. Hell, they actually beat the Bengals. That was a big reason the Bengals ended up with Joe Burrow. Now, granted, they took the wrong quarterback. They should have taken Herbert, but everyone tries in football. Everyone tries. You might get your ass kicked. You might get worked. I was watching the BYU-Colorado game last night. Colorado got their ass kicked. They were trying, and they were trying hard. And that's what you know as a consumer. When you turn on the game, that ideally you get something situation like Washington, Atlanta, where it's a very entertaining, just back and forth. Either team could win. Like obviously that's the best case scenario just from an entertainment standpoint. But it's just it's a point of differentiation for football that no matter what, till the last snap, week 18, coaches, players are going to try their ass off. I saw Foster Monroe, I retweeted it, who is on the Saints, just went on this long, long kind of rant about like, if you're not willing to lay it on the line every single week, like just get out of this locker room. Like this sport is way too hard. No one cares. Like no, the majority of the guys on a team are not guaranteed a roster spot. That's where guaranteed money comes in. Coaches can get fired at any moment, and it sucks to be a fan in that situation. Not because Shador guarantees you anything. Shador might be good in the NFL. He might not. We have no clue. And I mean, I thought Caleb Williams, all I was told by everybody, he's like, can't miss, greatest player since Joe Montana meets John Elway, meets Andrew Luck, meets Peyton Manning, meets Michael Vick, meets Lamar Jackson. You watch him, he looks fucking terrible. It's like, well, his coaches, the circumstances. Like, he holds on the ball for like 15 seconds every other play. So you never know anything. And that's kind of a sneaky problem with Shador. He holds on the ball. And I like Shador Sanders. But I like Caleb too. And then you never know. This sport's really hard. But ultimately, my point is that like you have to acknowledge, like, or just accept the fact that any game, no matter how crappy your team is, no matter how bad it is, you can just win a game. You can just win a game because the coaches and the players are really going to be trying. Okay, Tom Brady. Tom Brady's performance has given me a greater appreciation for Tony Romo. I hate doing this because you don't become the greatest teammate of all time, and everyone that plays with you, obviously they revere your ability and your accomplishments. But like everyone to a man that I've ever met that played for the Patriots, is like Tom's just a good guy. Tom's just a legit nice dude. And it's hard. He's an easy guy to just follow his lead. And if you play around him, you get better. And the way he treats, especially as he got more famous, the way he treated everybody, the way he treats his coaches, the assistant coaches, people around the building, like no one that was ever around him in New England and obviously Tampa, I've ever heard a bad word about him. Like not a word. So it pains me to do this, but I've tried to come around. Like he's just not that good. He's just not that good. It's very difficult for Tom to just be the Tom that can like shoot the shit with Julian Edelman when the cameras are off. Because clearly there's a different guy. And sometimes like my YouTube clip feed will throw me something like John Madden, or even like when you see John Gruden doing these clips now for Barstool, but same with Monday Night. He was like that when he was with the Raiders. Like that's just him. John Gruden is just, or I mean, John Madden was just John Madden. There's such a joy to Chris Collinsworth when he's calling a game. Tony Romo has actually kind of grown on me. I used to think he was cheesy, but it's like, that's just kind of him. I think Brady goes back into like this corporate mode. Like, bro, just be one of the dudes. We're just trying to hang out with you. And I think I don't crush him for misspeaking or forgetting something. It happens to me all the time. Part of speaking. But the thing that it's really difficult for him is just to be loose. He's just not loose. And I thought he was kind of getting it. I remember a game like middle of the year, but you watched him today. I mean, today was a big game. Vikings, Packers. Awful slate. It was by a mile the morning or the afternoon, the best game. Nothing was close. The anticipation, I mean, it had to be the highest rated game of the day. It was the national game. And it's just like, ugh. It's just, and I'm not one of those people that are like, Greg Olson got screwed. No, this is business. Tom Brady's worth a lot more to them from an advertising standpoint, from a famous standpoint. But like, just from who's better at their job, Greg can just be a little more normal. And I think Tom, for whatever reason, struggles with clearly like his life is not normal. He's Tom Brady, right? He lives a much different lifestyle than even most like rich, famous people. But like he has the ability because he's proven it when the cameras are off in the locker room or on the field with the boys, he can be one of the guys. Because you watch like Julian Edelman, like he can just be himself. Rob Gronkowski can just be himself. I think Tom has a really hard time broadcasting these games just being himself. He actually said one of the most insightful things I think I've heard him say of all the games I've watched. The way that they approached in New England, when you had three timeouts under the 2 minute warning, you can elongate the drive. So basically, you take a timeout somewhere between 2 minutes and 1 minute. You take another timeout somewhere between 1 minute and 30 seconds, and you leave yourself one timeout under 30 seconds. I'm like, well, Tom, if you are going to be kind of corporate-y, at least give me some sweet nuggets of all the cool shit you guys used to do in New England. But I don't know. It pains me to say it because everyone likes him in the football world. Like he's the ultimate football guy. Then he gets on television and he becomes like the corporate guy. And it's like, we've already seen the way society shifted heavily over the last 6 months. Authenticity sells. Just be yourself. And it's tough. I mean, and I understand he's thrown into the fire, but like, hey, fuck, they gave you $350 million, right? And it does show you like I'm watching these games, whether Brady calls it, whether you call it, whether my mom calls it. Like it's not determining whether we watch or not. So if I'm gonna watch it, I might as well be entertained. It's just not really working. I'm going to end on this because I think this guy is going to become more and more polarizing this entire offseason. Big fan, longtime listener. I started to think that Caleb discourse is getting a little out of hand. We're not even a full year in, and we're already making declarations that Jayden Daniels and Bo Nix are better players. But they all have comparable stats. I think when trying to make sense of this season, you need to factor in everyone's college careers and their current situations. Jayden started 55 games and has a former head coach as his OC. Yeah, okay. Yeah, you're right. Bo Nix started 61 games and has freaking Sean Payton. Caleb started 37 games and had Eberflus. Are we really surprised that the quarterback with the least amount of game started by a wide margin and the most chaotic coaching situation, two head coaches, three OCs, is having a bad season? I think that all the generational talent talk clouded everyone's judgment. Talent doesn't matter if you don't have the right coaching staff. Here's one problem for Caleb and Drake May is none of their snaps in any of the, like tonight, Bo Nix against Cincinnati, Michael Penix and Jayden Daniels tonight. Every snap they took tonight mattered. Every part of that game mattered. They were literally like Bo Nix and those two guys playing to get into the playoffs. They're playing on prime time with playoff implications. Every fucking play of that game, offensively and defense, mattered. Caleb Williams and Drake May haven't played a snap that mattered in months. None of their shit means anything. So like when I'm watching these guys, and I put Drake here too, is like we get so excited when they throw a touchdown down 20. It's like, what does that matter? It's not in the context of the game. The game's already out of hand. You're not going to win the game. You can't win the game. And I think Caleb has thrown a lot of touchdowns in equivalent of garbage time. Now, some of those are in the second or third quarter, but they're down 20, 25 to nothing. So if you throw a bunch of touchdowns in the third quarter, and I bet if we broke it down, he has over the last couple months thrown a bunch of touchdowns in the second half where they're down big. None of those throws actually matter. And I'm not trying to diminish his talent. He's got a big-time arm. He can move. But there is no disputing. You watched tonight Penix. A couple times he held on to the ball too long. As the game went on, he got the ball out of his hand. Jayden sometimes hold on to the ball too long. And then he realized, got to get the ball out of my hand. Caleb holds on to the ball forever. It's like, this is not, you're not playing Arizona. And I get it, his coaching sucks. But eventually, like, you're looking down the gun barrel, people are chasing you, and guys are running down the seam and running outs and slants. You either got to get rid of the ball or you're going to get sacked. And the guy holds on to the ball like if he gets rid of it, he's going to go bankrupt or something. It's crazy. It is a glaring deficiency. And if that is something you can coach out, I would say historically, I think it's easier to change accuracy than it is like guys that just kind of freeze up. And if you go back to USC, he kind of played like that as well, but he could pull plays out of his ass. I would say it's kind of concerning. His talent is not concerning. That characteristic, some coaches would say it's not something you can change. And whoever gets the job, whether it's the head coach is also the guy calling the plays or the head coach has to bring in an OC, they have a massive thing to fix. Drake is just playing in meaningless games. His team's terrible, but even he gets rid of the ball faster. Caleb, you just have to be a little concerned. because you can be like, you can't blame Eberflus, you can't blame Waldron. Like those guys have been fired for a long time now. He just drops back and holds on to the football. And I'm not some hater. Like I would have taken him number 1 too. But anyone that watches him, I think we have to agree it's kind of concerning, right? I mean, it's just kind of concerning because he does have good wide receivers. It's just like he won't pull the trigger. But overall, like it's got a chance to be a really, really good rookie class. All these guys got a lot of talent. But there's a big difference between having a lot of talent and then becoming a good player. And then becoming a good player and then becoming a guy that you could win with. Because Kyler, very talented guy. Really talented guy. Freak talent. One of the, honestly, just pound for pound, one of the better talents in recent memory. Can you win with Kyler Murray? I don't know. Probably not. and Kyler was every bit the prospect of Caleb. Caleb was taller, but Kyler was every bit as talented. Like, is Caleb going to be as good as that? I don't know. I'm just saying, like, this is hard. This is why when everyone was picking the Bears, I said, guys, this shit is, I didn't think any of these rookies had a chance. It's crazy what Jayden's done. And they benefited. Their division actually turned out to be kind of shitty. But this shit's difficult. Like, all these teams have a bunch of guys that live in mansions and drive Range Rovers. Their kids go to private schools, and they've been, every team's got guys been a Pro Bowl or two. Some teams have many. And this is not, like, you're not getting patsies. Even the shitty teams in the NFL. It's why, like, this is not college football where it's a subjective, yeah, we think this schedule's hard or this schedule's hard. Even if your schedule is a little easier than others, it's still hard. It is hard. Like, you fuck around, the Giants will beat you. You screw around, like, you'll be tied with the Raiders. Hell, we've seen the Raiders, who are somehow drafting ninth now. They beat the Ravens this year. They almost beat the Chiefs. Like, this is, football in the pros, even crappy teams got 3 or 4 guys on any given game can, like, score a couple touchdowns, get a couple sacks, pick the ball off. Like, all their guys are pros. And they got all their coaches, coordinators are making millions, head coaches making millions. Like, they're really, really trying. And the shit's really, really hard. Really hard. I've seen it firsthand. I was there, we won 1 year with the Eagles, but we also lost. We had Andy Reid as our coach. Andy Reid won the division, went 500, and then he won like 4 games, got fired. Football's fucking difficult. So to think that, like, all these guys, everything's going to be cool, like, I don't know. Maybe not. I mean, we see it all the time. Maybe he'll just be average because that's what usually happens. All these guys aren't going to hit. Hell, statistically, it would prove that, based on history, that, like, half of these guys aren't even going to be on their team after, like, based on the last draft where a bunch of guys were drafted, like, after the first 3 or 4 years. I don't think it's going to be that crazy here, but you never know. Like, shit gets weird and gets really fast. Okay, I'm going to go to bed, fucking beat this cold, and see you guys later. Adios.